What could that mean for the public if you guys aren't able to get there in time?
Fort Wayne's NBC reporter Karli VanCleave working to get answers about the troubles with TRA. The ambulance authority downed so many paramedics they are leaning on help from outside the city. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Powell.
And I'm Linda Jackson. Thank you for being with us. Karli has been uncovering new information for weeks now. She's with us again tonight, asking important new questions.
Among those questions I'm working to answer, Tom, Linda, when did the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority begin missing the call? And should you, the public, have known sooner?
When you call 911,
we impact lives.
you expect them to get there fast.
We hold the hands of those that are scared and hurt.
But these documents we obtained from Three Rivers Ambulance Authority show time after time they were so short-staffed they had to miss the call. Between July 2020 and July 2021, dispatchers had to rely on other agencies to respond 813 times.
There's no shortages of people that are getting sick. There's no shortages of people getting hurt and injured.
Ian Case was a TRA paramedic for more than 20 years and the union president. But feeling overworked and underpaid, he resigned along with many others.
It's trying. It is physically demanding. Wages stagnated, not kept up.
Who are we supposed to hold accountable for this?
For the answer to that question, I turned to City Councilman Russ Yale, who says he first heard worries about paramedic shortage in the fort in April.
I tried to work with TRA, the contractor, and the city administration for a period of a couple of weeks, and when the city administration said, nope, everything's fine, and refused to talk to me any further.
In June of 2021, he says county leaders who had been answering calls TRA couldn't came to him with numbers that caused concern.
I thought to myself, oh my goodness, the rumors are true, and how is this being kept from council and the public?
So Yale called the leaders with TRA and the contractor to sit before council.
It is disgusting, and it is absolutely awful.
City ordinance says when someone needs help, TRA will be there.
The job of TRA is to make sure that the public's protected.
This is how ambulance service is structured. The mayor, county commissioners, and the medical community appoint TRA board members. The board's job is to oversee the contractor, paramedics, logistics.
TRA management chose to not disclose any of that to the public, shows that they were failing at their responsibilities to the public.
I called and emailed now former TRA executive director Gary Boer for a response, but haven't heard back. My calls and emails to paramedics logistics also went unanswered. When Boer went before the council, he blamed a national paramedic shortage.
I'm sorry I don't have an answer that you will accept.
Nobody wants to work for TRA, so you can't blame that on the national shortage alone.
You've lost tons of employees.
That was, frankly, a failure in leadership.
Former TRA paramedics say this is too important to ignore.
I'm just hoping that this doesn't get, swept under the rug. EMS is notably usually in the background, and we can't do that anymore.
Councilman Yale says the focus now should be on stabilizing the system.
The most important thing is to make sure that the board and the administration and the council, along with the county commissioners, all do everything that we can going forward to be as vigilant as possible.
Now, the board has already selected a new executive director. Joel Bentz will take over at a time when a lot of people are watching. He's agreed to do an interview with me about the changes he'll implement in the future. Look for that part of our coverage next week.
Happening now, missing the call. We're asking important questions about TRA's future.
Did you ever think that there was someone to blame for this?
Tonight, the new executive director talks with Fort Wayne's NBC News.
I have some thoughts about how we can fix things.
Now at 11, he's gone from driving the ambulance as a paramedic, but now he's in a position to drive the change for Three Rivers Ambulance Authority. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Powell. Thank you for joining us. My partner, Linda Jackson, has the night off. Fort Wayne's NBC reporter Karli VanCleave continues her coverage of missing the call. The Three Rivers Ambulance Authority downed so many paramedics, they've been having to rely on the county for help. Tonight, Karli introduces us to the new TRA executive director who has updated numbers on the problem. Karli?
Tom, former county councilman Joel Benz takes over as the executive director at a time when numbers show the problem isn't getting any better. Let me show you. Over a year's time, from the beginning of July of last year through July of this year, TRAW had to defer calls to the county 813 times. New data I obtained just today shows it happened 424 times just in the past 3 months. Our question tonight, how will the new director keep that number from going up any further?
I worked for Three Rivers Ambulance Authority on the contractor side.
Joel Benz answered calls as a paramedic for 19 years. And last year, he says he started to feel the impact of the paramedic shortage.
The folks that are out there that we have, they're working pretty hard. I talked to a lady that's been here 17 years, almost as long as I have the other day, and she said she's been working about 27 days a month for the last 9 months.
Ben says he was fed up.
I knew eventually, like, it was unsustainable. One, you can't just have staffing like that and not, just work your people that hard and not have something change.
He knew there was a problem.
At that point, I was a medic on the street, and we were just doing our job, honestly. It was maybe a little frustrating that there wasn't scrutiny sooner in my viewpoint of what was going on and why we weren't able to perform at the same level.
So he decided to turn in his paramedic gear and accept the appointment as new TRAW executive director.
Somebody that had a fresh set of eyes on things and somebody that would be able to hold folks accountable for what they were doing.
I asked him about his priorities. He says he'll focus on hiring part-time paramedics, getting response times down, and increasing transparency.
I'm a very transparent person. I believe that when you do that, it establishes trust. And so that's my intent, is to provide updates to the community.
He says that transparency will start now. In fact, Benz gave me these new numbers, showing that when there aren't enough TRAW paramedics to cover all the emergency calls,
TRAW level 0 on back pain.
Other agencies like the fire department and county crews step in.
County EMS, TRAW level 0 on back pain.
That's called a TRAW level 0. And as I showed you, the number of level 0 calls is on the rise.
In your position holding forward, who are you going to hold accountable?
So obviously the contractor has a responsibility to make those times, and they've been non-compliant for a year now.
The contractor, Paramedics Logistics, has agreed in a contract to keep response times under 8.5 minutes. In September, they only met that goal about 70% of the time.
Did you ever think that there was someone to blame for this, I guess?
I think the mechanism for control is obviously public, but the board is responsible, as is the executive director, for kind of maintaining stuff and making sure that folks know what's going on, city council and the mayor.
In the meantime, he'll have to work with all of those parties and the paramedics union to get more workers on board and more calls answered on time.
We're doing our best to find a way to make sure that when you call the ambulance, somebody shows up in a timely manner.
Well, Benz plans to go before City Council soon to lay out his new game plan, and we'll be there. We can also promise to follow the numbers as he works to make changes. You can find my previous coverage on FortWaynesNBC.com. Tom?
Your loved one needs help and needs it fast.
TRAW level 0.
But as we've shown you, hundreds of people in the fort have called 911 and faced delays.
County EMS.
So who's to blame, and is the problem fixed?
Tonight, a key leader for TRAW tells his side of the story, what went wrong and what he's doing to try and fix it.
It's difficult to lead during a time like this.
Plus, we'll ride along with paramedics who are experiencing the real-world impact of the shortage.
So this is what you guys track your calls with, correct?
Yes.
Your news begins now.
Live from Television Park, this is Fort Wayne's NBC News at 11.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Jackson. Tom Powell has the night off. In her ongoing investigation, Fort Wayne's NBC reporter Karli VanCleave has exposed the problem with that paramedic shortage that potentially could affect all of us. And tonight, she talks with first responders, the ones who are dealing with the problem each and every day. Karli.
That's right, Linda. I've been telling you about the paramedic shortage for months now. And getting into the passenger seat of a TRA ambulance was perhaps the best way to see firsthand the impact of the shortage. Paramedics say they're overworked and underpaid. They love their job, but they're not afraid to say they need more help now. When you call 911, Michael Manns is ready to respond.
Medic 102 on command.
Ready to be by your side.
We'll take good care of him, okay? All right.
Caring for you when you need it most.
We're not going to get assigned a call.
Okay. Manns has been working in emergency medical services for 27 years. So this is what you guys track your calls with, correct?
Yes.
And I had him show me exactly what it's like on the streets.
Each of these is an ambulance.
For a first responder working at a time when only 22 paramedics are on the streets. There should be 38. They're short 16 paramedics per day.
I enjoy being a paramedic, and I like helping and working with people. There are times where it's very intense, and times where, things don't go well.
When TRA is too busy to respond immediately, dispatchers call for a TRA level 0.
County EMS, TRA level 0 on back pain.
That's when they rely on county agencies to step in and take the call. That's happened nearly 500 times in just the past 2 months. But Manns doesn't need to see the numbers. He already knows there's a problem.
It's very stressful. It's very stressful for the dispatchers. It's very stressful for the medic.
An ambulance is supposed to get to a scene within 8.5 minutes. But Manns says because of the shortage, it can take up to 20 minutes when calls are at a peak and staffing is low.
The response time of that length is a big deal here because that's not the expectation. That's not what should happen, and we want to fix that, and that's not okay.
For months, I've talked with key leaders about what it will take to solve this problem. New Executive Director Joel Benz.
My intent is to provide updates to the community.
Former Union President Ian Case.
This needs to be an issue that's front and center.
City Councilman Russ Yale.
The job of TRA is to make sure that the public's protected.
And now the person whose job it is to keep response times down. Chief Operating Officer Mike Bureau.
I think they'd seen some paramedics leave prior to me getting here last September. I think that had continued to go on. I think some of that was just frustration with COVID.
The contractor hired Bureau as COO in September of 2020. Before that, he held the same position in South Dakota.
The public is counting on us. The employee group is counting on me to keep things moving in the right direction.
Bureau is responsible for making sure TRA stays at or under that 8.5-minute response time benchmark. And there's some work to do. In the past month, they've only hit that goal 70% of the time, leading to fines from the TRA board for non-compliance.
As a contractor, that's a two-edged sword, so to speak, right? Because on one aspect, I fully understand the reason to hold us accountable, and I'm in no way disappointed in that, and we've been supportive of them holding us accountable to that contract and that contractual requirement.
This year alone, the contractor has faced more than $1 million in fines.
We do need to be held accountable in these contracts. It's just unprecedented time. When these contracts were written, we weren't looking at coming out of a global pandemic.
Bureau says paramedics and EMTs need hands-on training, and the pandemic forced that training to go virtual.
So when they weren't able to get on the ambulances and they weren't able to get into classrooms, we began to see that pipeline shorten up.
He says they started losing more paramedics than they were gaining.
It's difficult to lead during a time like this, right? We all just kind of have to rely on one another.
To help with that, they've initiated a new program called Earn to Learn, paying new hires to train as they work toward getting certified. On the streets, Manns is anxious to see those new recruits start.
The shortages are everywhere. I mean, it's a nationwide problem. We have our own issues here locally that are in addition to or also with that.
One that needs to be addressed and solved. And Manns is not ready to give up yet. He knows he's doing important work. He simply needs more help.
So I don't see myself as a hero. It's not for everybody, for sure, but it is a very rewarding career.
Well, TRA is still looking to hire paramedics, EMTs, or even people with no experience at all. You can apply for their new Earn to Learn program. It's a 10-week-long training program where you will get paid to learn and eventually become a certified EMT. I'll include a link to where you can apply in this story on FortWaynesNBC.com.